Number 5 says determine the amplitude of the function and then graph y equals cosine of x in the same rectangular coordinate system as y equals -2 cosine of x. So the amplitude for this function would be 2, the absolute value of a. Choose the graph that shows both y equals the cosine of x and y equals -2 cosine of x. Okay, so I have to look for my correct amplitude, which would be 2. Okay, so if I see 4 here, the only one, let's see, that has an amplitude of 2, I have this function here, along with the parent graph y equals cosine of x. Neither of these have an amplitude of 2, so it wouldn't be A. Possibly B, possibly C, because we do have an amplitude here of 2, but not D. Both of these have an amplitude of 1. Okay, so y equals -2 cosine of x, because of its being negative, means that I have a reflection. So if cosine has been reflected about the x-axis, this would be our curve. Okay, so that gives us the difference between B or C. The parent graph is here, y equals cosine of x. This is y equals -2 cosine of x. Okay, number 6, amplitude and period. Amplitude, the coefficient of cosine, which is understood 1. The period, again, for cosine is 2 pi over b. So my b value is 3. So 2 pi over 3 is my period. And then it says compute the coordinates for your equation. Okay, which you do have your graph here. When x is 0, y is 1, pi over 6, y is 0, pi over 3, -1, pi over 2, 0, 2 pi over 3, back at +1. So that gives me a period from 0 to 2 pi over 3, because after that we can see that this graph would repeat. Okay, number 7, determine the amplitude and the period of the function. So the amplitude is absolute value of a, so that would be 4. The period, again, is 2 pi over b. Okay, so 2 pi over 1/4 divided by 1/4 is the same thing as 2 pi times 4. So my period is actually 8 pi. Okay, what do you think is going to happen to our graph if my period is 8 pi rather than 2 pi? It's going to be stretched out greater. The sine wave, or the cosine wave, would be. Okay, so now we have to determine the graph for this function. Okay, so because my a value is negative or less than 0, I would have a reflection. Okay, which one would represent a reflection of the cosine graph? Okay, could be A, could be B. That eliminates C and D. Which one has the correct period? Okay, we said this has a period of 8 pi, so that would be A. Because B has a period of 4 pi. Okay, number 8, determine the amplitude and period and phase shift, and then graph one period of the function. We have the equation y equals 1/5 cosine of 2x plus pi over 2. Amplitude is 1/5. Absolute value of a. The period, 2 pi over b. So my b value is 2. So 2 pi over 2 gives me a period of pi. The phase shift, -c over b. So I would have negative pi over 2 over 2. So if I have negative pi over 2 divided by 2, negative pi over 2 times 1/2, so negative pi over 4. So this graph would be shifted to the left, pi over 4 units. Okay, now we have to choose the correct graph. So again, I'm going to look at amplitude. This is not a reflection, so none of these are reflections. Amplitude is 1/5, so we can tell this is divided into equal segments here. We can tell this has an amplitude of 1/5. B does not. C does not. D does. Okay, so then I have to look at the period. If I look at the distance between negative pi and 3 pi, okay, that would have a period of 2 pi. And then here, D, negative pi over 4 to 3 pi over 4, that's going to be our correct period. And then we want to check our phase shift. So we can see this graph has been shifted to the left pi over 4 units. So the correct answer would be D.